Thank you all for joining us here at I-80 Sports, where today it has been a few weeks in the NHL, so it's time to hit you with our Week 3 recap, guys. Thank you again for joining us here again at I-80 Sports. Thank you all for joining us here at I-80 Sports. Make sure that you subscribe down below, youtube.com/I-80 Sports. And while you're there, hit up the conversation and comment section down below. Let us know what you guys think of everything going on in the NHL. Now that we're in the month of November, which is wild for me to even think about, Thanksgiving's just around the corner, and just wild to really think about how quickly this season has already gone on. While you're there, make sure you hit the like button and hit the bell notifications so that way you know when we drop new videos each week. And if you're still on X, make sure you follow us below at I80_sports NHL. And if you follow us already, thank you guys so much because we greatly value all of your support. Without you guys, we can't do this. I'm Brian. He's Tom, still getting used to directions. Tom, how you doing today?
Doing well, and here we are to review yet another week in the great sport of hockey. Here we go.
Yeah, I definitely feel a little, we're dropping this video a little bit later because I definitely feel a little out of sorts lately. I don't know if you guys can kind of tell from my voice, but it's not been the best lately. I'm a little bit disheveled, which is also why I'm a little bit like out of it today, but it is what it is. We're going to power on through and we're going to hit up right now, getting right started right from the jump. Time to hit up our traffic report for our top news of the week. Let's get to the traffic report.
The I-80 Sports Traffic Report, where you can find all your news and notes from the week.
Traffic report, as usual, is for our top news stories of the week, which you guys are going to know is that our top news stories of the week is pretty much, I mean, there's going to be some things we mention off the top, but our top headline, everything's on fire and everybody's hurt. More on that once we get to the injury report. But just right off the top, dropping, any kind of fourth wall and anything like that to get serious for a little bit. We at I-80 Sports would like to extend our deepest condolences to the family and friends of Adam Johnson, who sadly passed away tragically this past Saturday after a tragic incident with a skate blade to his neck. And I will off the cuff say that I like the NHL and the world's response so far to this tragic death and how they're trying to protect players moving forward. We just recently saw in the NHL that TJ Oshie of the Washington Capitals was one of the first players to wear a neck guard in NHL play. And you have other organizations in different leagues around the world that are rolling out mandated neck guards for their players. And I think it's a wonderful response to try to prevent another tragic situation like this. And this is not the first time we have seen an incident like this in the past. To most recent memory, Richard Zednik, at least a decade and a half ago at this point. How long ago was that, Tom?
Oh, I don't know. The one I was thinking of was actually
Trent
McCleary.
Oh.
He took a puck off the throat. That was, believe it or not, Super Bowl Sunday when the Montreal Canadiens used to play home game, would play a home game on the night of the Super Bowl while the game was on. Trent McCleary took a puck off the throat. Yeah, that was one that was in my mind when I heard about it.
Yeah, I mean, my instant thought went to I can't remember his first name off the top of my head, but he was a goaltender for Buffalo, Malarchuk.
Clint Malarchuk too.
Yeah, he's the
Clint
first
Malarchuk. That one was a little more akin to this. Obviously, Clint Malarchuk survived, but that was a little more akin to this. The Trent McCleary was one that just popped in my head, even though he took a puck off the throat.
Yeah, and either way, there's no perfect segue from this particular segment, but we at ID Sports extend our deepest condolences to Adam Johnson's family and friends during this really troubling time. And we hope that with the response of the NHL and other affiliations around the world, I'm hoping that this can be prevented in the future. And it's unfortunate that it took a tragedy for, something like this to finally come to light. But we're going to move right along here. We're going to keep on muscling through. Part of our injury report that we're going to talk about today is going to highlight an injury with the Buffalo Sabres. But in response to one player going on the IR for the Buffalo Sabres, Buffalo top prospect Matthew Savoy has been called up to the NHL. And Tom, I distinctly remember a time where we were talking up Matthew Savoy quite a bit with two other players leading up to the 2020 NHL draft. I remember him being like a top 3, even top 2 prospect back when even before, like a year before that draft even rolled out. What do you think about this call up?
Oh, well, I mean, good for him that he was called up. I feel like that we were all teased a little bit. That was the Shane Wright draft too, where the top prospects were hyped, but didn't really turn in anything, including Shane Wright, who you haven't heard much from lately. Congrats to him for going up. I just want to look up his stat line real quick if I can.
Certainly. While you're looking up that stat line, it was the draft in 2020 where we were really talking up Shane Wright,
Matthew Savoy, and
Brad Lambert.
Brad Lambert, okay.
Yep. Brad Lambert was the other. It was the third of that three-headed monster that was being hyped going into that draft. And lo and behold, there's still so much time for all 3 players to develop. But they're certainly not the memorable names from that draft so far. Or was it the 2021 draft that they were in?
I'm sorry? No, it was the 2022 draft. I'm just looking up his stats right now. Believe it or not, he's got 5 points in 6 games so far for Rochester this year, and he had 95 points in junior last year. So, I do think it warrants a call-up. I didn't realize that his stats were that good, to be honest with you. But he's definitely deserving of the call.
Absolutely. I had even forgotten that he was even a top prospect for Buffalo. Buffalo, there's a lot to look forward to in Buffalo, but with a lot of teams, we'll be looking at the injury report and also see how things are also going to be mixed up for the next few weeks, maybe even month moving forward. On to our next headline. The Chicago Blackhawks have been hit with yet another lawsuit for negligence as a second anonymous player has come out with allegations of sexual assault from video coach Brad Aldrich, which dates back to 2010 during that beginning of the Chicago Blackhawks dynasty. Tom, any immediate reaction to this?
Once again, terrible. Terrible all around. I don't know. I guess when the dominoes have fallen, it's always something else is coming out too. It's just a terrible thing all around, and it's all I can really say. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Justice for the victims in this situation, unfortunately. I mean, it's a situation like this shouldn't have even happened to begin with. So I certainly hope that there is justice for the players who have been assaulted in this particular case. The Ottawa Senators. I mean, it's been a little while since we've talked, and this was a news headline that happened like a day or two after our last recording. But the Ottawa Senators have fired general manager Pierre Dorion after Ottawa was forced to forfeit 1 first-round pick within the next 3 years due to tampering in a trade deadline trade last year. And for those wondering, yes, it was the bizarre Evgeny Dadonov trade that did not happen with it was just so bizarre in general. It was a very, very bizarre situation. And the hits keep on coming for Ottawa lately. I mean, I feel like we're mentioning Ottawa week in and week out right now to start the season. We had the Shane Pinto news last week with him being suspended for 41 games. Now we're talking about Ottawa forfeiting a first-round pick and the firing, the long due firing of Pierre Dorion. Immediate reactions here, Tom. Do you think this is the right decision, and how is this going to impact Ottawa going forward?
I'd say it was the right decision for the tampering, and just I don't know. I don't know what more to say about them. 2 weeks ago, I'm singing their praises, saying they finally have turned the corner. Now they find themselves in last place in the East. They've lost 2 in a row. They are 4-6 in their last 10, and I don't know what else to say. I don't know where else they can go right now. But it's been terrible over there for the last little while, for the last 2 weeks. I don't know what happened.
Yeah. Bless you.
Thank you.
But yeah, Ottawa's in a little bit of a flux right now, and I feel like a lot of balls have been dropped here by Pierre Dorian leading up to his firing. I mean, you have the situation with Shane Pinto, and obviously the gambling situation, which is something that he obviously didn't really have a play in. But he's not the only player that they've been in massive flux with in contract talks. Alex Formenton has been almost completely gutted at this point of his potential because of long outstanding contract disputes. And this is a player that was a top prospect for the Ottawa Senators not too long ago. And with his inability to get back on the ice because of these contract disputes, I really wonder how much of his potential has really been gutted at this point. I mean, it's really, really unfortunate. Beyond that, sacrificing a first round pick within the next 3 years might not hurt. I do feel like that Ottawa is going to bite the bullet. They're going to probably sacrifice this year's first round pick. So that way they get it over with, they get it done with, unless they truly think that within the next 3 years, they're big time contenders. Like if they think that they can actually be legitimate Stanley Cup contenders in the next 3 years, maybe you do wait until 2024, 2025 to give up that first round pick and hope for the best. But I think it might be better to just give it up at this point, get it done with, get it over with, and move on. And I was even saying, and Tom and I were even saying last year, it was really fishy when we were talking about the Evgeny Dadonov trade that did not happen. And now it seems like now we're figuring out why it didn't happen. So just unfortunate to see. We're going to move on here. This is going to take up quite a bit of time here. We're hitting up our injury report. There's a lot to unpack here with our injury report. We'll give you immediate reactions as we roll on through as well, especially as we get to mine and Tom's favorite teams, because there's going to be some stuff to talk about there. Coming right off the top with the Arizona Coyotes, Jason Zucker with lower body injury is expected to return no later than November 11th, which is being reported by Craig Morton of the Phoenix Sports News. He's been out since October 23rd. To the Boston Bruins, Derek Forbort is out for Monday night's game against Dallas with a lower body injury. Charlie McAvoy is eligible to return Saturday against Montreal after being suspended 4 games for an illegal check to the head on Florida's Oliver Ekman-Larsson. He appealed that 4-game suspension, and the suspension was upheld by Gary Bettman. Jacob Lauko is likely a mid-November return after taking a skate to the face. Look up that picture at some point and tell me that hockey players aren't warriors for real. But just thank God it wasn't any lower. Thank God it was like at least where it was, because Jacob Lauko is going to make a full recovery and he's going to be back on the ice by mid-November, latest late November. Matt Grzelcyk is out indefinitely and has been placed on IR with an upper body injury, and Milan Lucic is a potential mid-November return after an ankle sprain. Tom, why don't you take it over for the Buffalo Sabres?
Buffalo Sabres, okay. Dylan Cousins' upper body may be able to practice in a few days, Heather Engel of NHL.com reports, indicating he won't be able to play Tuesday against Carolina. Brandon Biro is placed on IR with an undisclosed injury, no timetable yet for return. Matthias Samuelsson, lower body, was placed on injured reserve Saturday per the NHL media site. Zach Benson, placed on IR with a lower body injury. Eric Comrie, placed on IR with a lower body injury, suffered October 28th against the Devils. Calgary, Andrew Mangiapane is eligible to return on Friday against Toronto for cross-checking the Seattle forward Jared McCann on Saturday. Adam Ruzicka, day-to-day with a shoulder injury, questionable to suit up Tuesday against Nashville. Kevin Rooney, remember him?
Oh, yeah.
He was transferred Thursday from the regular injured reserve list to the long-term injured reserve list, per cap friendly. Carolina, and they just can't seem to ever get any luck with this. Freddie Anderson out indefinitely with a blood clotting issue. According to President GM Don Waddell, he's expected to make a full recovery, but there's no timetable for return. Michael Bunting, questionable Tuesday against Buffalo for personal reasons. Brett Pesce underwent surgery last Tuesday due to his low body injury. And the Hurricanes announced Wednesday that he's expected to miss 2 to 4 weeks, late November. We're going to skip over a couple teams, move on to the Dallas Stars right now. Radek Faksa and Matt Duchene, both out Monday against Boston with upper body injuries. Detroit, Christian Fischer was held out of the last match with an upper body injury, leaving his status for Tuesday's tilt against the Rangers in question. Robbie Fabry, another one, remember him? Has been shuttled to the injured reserve list with a lower body injury and is expected to remain idle until the middle of November. Dylan Larkin, day-to-day with an undisclosed injury, so we'll see what happens there against the Rangers. Edmonton, Connor Brown was held out of the previous match with a lower body injury, leaving his status for Monday's game against the Canucks, the late tilt tonight, uncertain. Florida, Sam Bennett absent from the last 2 contests with a lower body injury, unclear if he'll face the Blue Jackets tonight. However, Bennett is considered week to week. Coach Paul Maurice informed the media. Brandon Montour will join the Panthers full team at practice Sunday, is expected to accompany the team on next week's road trip. Jordan McPherson of the Miami Herald reports. It should be noted that Montour is recovering from off-season shoulder surgery, and he is not expected to make his season return until the end of November. Aaron Ekblad will practice with the Panthers on Sunday and accompany the team on the road trip. Like with Montour, it's worth noting Ekblad was initially sent to the LTIR with a fractured foot and an oblique tear and is now on the mend from shoulder surgery. He is not likely to suit up till the latter part of November. We're going to skip another.
I'll take it from here, and I'll give you a little bit of relief because I know for me it could be a lot sometimes.
Yeah, it's all right.
Oh yeah. Minnesota, Freddie Gaudreau is sidelined with an upper body injury, and team officials have not yet confirmed an exact return date. Montreal, Raphael Harvey-Pinard was absent from the last matchup with a lower body injury, leaving his status against the Tampa Bay Lightning on Tuesday hazy. To the Nashville Predators, Ryan McDonough was absent from the last game with a lower body injury, and he has yet to be determined if he will face the Flames on Tuesday. Cody Glass has been placed on the injury reserve list with a lower body injury, and it's likely that he's going to be sidelined for at least the next 7 to 10 days, expected to make a mid-November return. To the New Jersey Devils here we go. So Jack Hughes has sustained a right shoulder injury, and I have updates to report on this for those Devils fans that are desperate for the update here. His status is considered week to week going forward, according to Ryan Novozinski of the Star Ledger. He also notes, and this is new as of today, he avoided re-aggravating an upper body injury sustained in the playoffs last season, as well as a concussion. The rumor right now is that he's out 3 to 4 weeks, but like everything in the NHL, it is a fluid situation. So more to follow on that. It is likely that we're not going to see Jack Hughes at least for the remainder of the month of November. He could make a late November return. Thinking more realistically, it's probably going to be early December until we see Jack Hughes again. Colin Miller, who has not played an NHL game yet for the New Jersey Devils, he's been placed on injury reserve due to a lower body injury, and his timetable for recovery has yet to be established. Nico Hischier, he's been sidelined with an upper body injury sustained from a high hit from Buffalo's Connor Clifton, and he's going to remain out of the lineup until the middle of November, more than likely. I think more than likely on the next Devils homestand. I don't know if as early as Friday when they face the Washington Capitals. I don't know if he's going to be ready to suit up for that game. However, we could maybe see him as early as next week suiting up for the New Jersey Devils, and they could certainly use it at this point. Their center depth has certainly taken a bit of a hit, but you have players that have been stepping up in their absence that we'll talk about in just a little bit. I'm going to read off the Islanders here, and then, Tom, I'm going to let you read off the Rangers, and I'll have you cut off at, I'll let you cut off at around Pittsburgh.
Okay, that's fine.
That way you can talk about your Rangers. But the New York Islanders here, Bo Horvat, he's been hindered by a lower body injury, and it's undetermined if he will suit up for Tuesday's matchup against the Minnesota Wild. Adam Pelech was absent from his last game as well with a lower body injury, and it's also uncertain if he is going to face the Wild on Tuesday night. Tom, I'll let you take it away with your Rangers, and I hope things aren't as on fire across the river.
Well, Barclay Goodrow is away for the team for the birth of his child. He did not play against Minnesota. It's likely he's going to play tomorrow against the Red Wings. He did not practice today, though. He was not on the ice today with the team. Igor Shesterkin held out a last contest with a lower body injury, leaving his availability against the Red Wings tomorrow night in question. I will confirm this. Igor was on the ice today and did practice with the team, so it's looking like he will probably play. Adam Fox, long-term injured reserve list with a lower body injury, the knee-on-knee against Carolina. Cheap, I don't know. I didn't like it. We'll see what happens. Team officials have not confirmed an exact return date, but by the rules, I think it has to be it's end of November. It has to be 24 days or 10 games, something along those lines. I believe that's the rules. Philip Hedl also showed up to the injured reserve list with an upper body injury. They're saying maybe 2 more games for him. We'll see what happens. They're saying undetermined length of time, but he should be good to go again within the next week. We'll see what happens there. Also want to harken back to Florida before about Sam Bennett. He is not playing tonight as we speak. He's not playing. So we'll move on to the Ottawa Senators now. Ridley Gregg missed the last matchup with a lower body injury, and it remains to be seen if he'll participate in the Battle of Ontario against the Leafs. Eric Brandstrom, absent from the previous 3 contests due to concussion, also undetermined if he'll play on Wednesday. Mark Kastelich has been placed on the injured reserve list with a high ankle sprain. No timetable for return yet. All per Bruce Garrett, the Ottawa Sun, one of the best reporters in the game. Artem Zub sidelined with an upper body injury and have also not confirmed an exact return date. Thomas Chabot, long-term injured reserve list with a fractured hand, going to be out for a month to 6 weeks. On to the Philadelphia Flyers. Felix Sandstrom, placed on the injured reserve list with an upper body injury. Team officials have not yet confirmed an exact return date. Carter Hart, absent from the previous 2 games with an abdominal injury, and it's uncertain if he'll dress for Tuesday's tilt versus the Sharks. Not sure if it really matters at this point versus that team, but yeah. Sean Couturier held out of the previous 2 contests due to a lower body injury, also hazy against the Sharks. Not sure if it really would matter. Rasmus Ristolainen has been also sent to the LTIR with an unknown injury, and he'll miss an undetermined length of time. Pittsburgh, short but sweet. Alex Nedeljkovic, long-term injured reserve list with a lower body injury, and team officials have not confirmed an exact return date. John Ludwig, sidelined with a concussion, and unknown when he'll return to the ice.
I was also going to say for the Philadelphia Flyers, I mean, it's just more so good news that Rasmus Ristolainen is going to be out for a little while longer at this point. I joke, but I do hope he gets well soon. But come on, I mean, I got to think that Philly fans are a little happy here. To the San Jose Sharks, and it's not like these injuries are really going to matter at this point. Kaapo Kähkönen was absent from his previous game with an upper body injury. It's not determined yet if he's going to face the Flyers on Tuesday. I would expect that Mackenzie Blackwood is probably going to be the starter against the Philadelphia Flyers on Tuesday night. Logan Couture, lower body injury, had a minor setback in his recovery recently that will keep him off the ice for a little while longer, according to Max Miller of the Hockey News. He has retroactively been placed on the injury reserve list because of this setback. Alex Barabanov is expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks due to a broken finger, Sheng Peng of San Jose Hockey Now reports. And Matt Benning has been assigned to the injury reserve list with a lower body injury, and he's going to miss an undetermined length of time because of that. Moving on to Seattle, Alex Burakovsky, who we reported on his injury a few weeks back. He's been moved to the injury reserve list officially with his upper body issue. And as we mentioned last time, his timetable last time we talked to you guys was 4 to 6 weeks. It is updated now. He's projected to miss 6 to 8 weeks. So more than likely, it's going to be at least a mid-December return for Alex Burakovsky. We're going to skedaddle past St. Louis here, move on to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tyler Mott has been activated from the injured reserve list after recovering from a hand injury, and he is likely to return against the Toronto Maple Leafs on Monday. On to more positive news for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Andrei Vasilevsky, who's been out since before the beginning of this season with a back injury, is on or even ahead of schedule in his rehabilitation, according to Tampa Bay Lightning head coach John Cooper. The Toronto Maple Leafs, Jake McCabe has missed the previous 4 contests with a groin injury, and he is not going to suit up against the Tampa Bay Lightning on Monday, Dave Alter of Sports Illustrated reports. Timothy Liljegren has been shipped off to the long-term injury reserve to the LTIR list with a lower body injury, and there is no established timetable for his recovery just yet. Speedy recovery, especially after that scary hit into the boards the other night. Connor Timmins, with his lower body injury, as we reported weeks ago, he has resumed skating, but is still, quote, a ways away from playing. And this was informed by head coach Sheldon Keefe, and he informed this to Mark Masters of TSN on this past Wednesday. Tom, I'm going to let you take it away from here with the remaining teams, starting with Vegas and going down to Winnipeg.
Okay, Vegas, here we are. Alec Martinez held out of the last contest with an unknown ailment, leaving his status for Wednesday's battle versus Kings in question. Nicholas Hague, idle with a lower body injury, not expected to be available to the middle of November. Nicholas Waugh, assigned to the injured reserve list with soreness in an unknown location without a definitive timetable for recovery. Washington, and I don't know if this is a huge hit or not, something that was kind of predicted over the past few years with them. Nicholas Backstrom, placed on the IR or recovering from hip surgery, likely out for the rest of the season. From what I'm reading, he's probably played his last game. Washington's not cup contenders anymore, but it's still sad. You know, it's the beginning of the end maybe for the Caps. Trevor Van Riemsdyk, Middletown, New Jersey native, exited the previous match with a lower body injury, leaving his availability for Wednesday versus Florida in question. Bailey Johnson from the Washington Post Sports. Evgeny Kuznetsov, ailing from an illness, undetermined if he'll play Wednesday versus the Panthers. Max Pacioretty on the injured reserve with a torn Achilles. I don't know what to say about him anymore. Still not expected to play till the middle of this month, but he still hasn't started skating either. So I don't know why. I can't understand what signing Pacioretty is doing anymore for any team. And that's actually it, because the Winnipeg Jets have no injuries to report.
Yeah. And I know it's a lot to unpack here, Tom, but I'm going to let you scrape off the top here before we get to wow or worrisome. But do any injuries to you kind of, stick out to you? Or, I mean, you can even use this time and platform to talk a little bit about the Rangers as well, but I'll give you a little bit of time on this. Any injuries stick out to you, or I'll yield your time to talk about the Rangers?
I mean, I don't know if the Rangers ones bother me per se. It's the biggest loss would have been Igor, but if Igor is back on the ice today and in full gear, practicing with the team, I'm not so much worried. They were without Fox for some time 2 years ago. They were able to deal with it. Being without Hedl, yes and no, but remember, you have Vincent Trocheck right back there, who's more than capable for being a second line center. So the biggest one would have been Igor, but if it looks like all signs are pointing to him playing tomorrow night. So as terrible as the Fox injury is, I don't know if it's that big of a loss versus, say, a loss like Jack Hughes is to the Devils. Whereas Hughes is the straw that stirs that team's drink. Whereas Fox is a big part of the Rangers, yes. But I don't think the Rangers depend solely on Adam Fox to win hockey games either.
And that's fair. I mean, to talk a little bit about the Devils, because it's no secret. I mean, losing the current leading scorer in the NHL, it's going to be a hit to your lineup no matter what. And especially with how Jack Hughes has been playing, he really has been making that power play run and work so well, even for the past, few seasons now. You could argue that Jack Hughes has made a significant difference on that power play since his second year, honestly. But losing Jack Hughes here, it does hurt. Losing Nico Hischier also, it hurts as well. And I got to think that the Devils, it's in the back of their mind right now. It's certainly in the back of Lindy Ruff's mind, head coach of the New Jersey Devils. I got to think it's in the back of his mind at least, and at least pondering how he's going to shuffle the lines. We saw it last night against the Chicago Blackhawks. Even as early as 5 minutes into the game, Lindy Ruff was already shuffling line pairings and trying to figure out some chemistry kind of going forward without Jack Hughes and without Nico Hischier for the time being. But you do have some more than capable centers that can take over in Jack Hughes's and Nico Hischier's place right now. Michael McLeod has stepped up very, very nicely since Nico Hischier's injury, and he's stepped up since the beginning of last season. He is one of the best face-off draws in the NHL right now. He sports over a 60% face-off percentage right now, and he even sported an above 50% face-off last year. I think he was actually roughly at like 58 or 59% last year. Starting off this year, I think he's right around like 60 to 62% at the moment. Can't ask for much more than that from Michael McLeod. Eric Howla, more than capable to take over at center in most games as well. Dawson Mercer, who finally got it going last night with a goal against the Chicago Blackhawks. He's going to be a guy that Lindy Ruff is going to look to maybe try to get things going on that second line, maybe lining up in that second line center spot. Moving on down the depth, you got to think that probably first line, they're going to be expecting Dawson Mercer or Michael McLeod to kind of fill those shoes for right now in 1C and 2C. Then looking at the third and fourth line, Curtis Lazar can step up into that spot nicely. Eric Howla can step up into that spot nicely. In a pinch, Nathan Bastian can also step into the center's role. So the Devils are pretty deep at center. You also still have Chris Tierney as well that has been lining up as your fourth line center. So I think the Devils are going to be fine here. It's so early in the season, and it's better to just let both of these guys get healthy, get right, and keep pushing forward. Who this might impact moving forward, though, for his stats could be Jesper Bratt, who has certainly been taking some good leads from Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier, respectively. So that's going to be something to monitor over the next few weeks as well. Other injuries that stick out to me, I mean, I really hate to see the injury for Nicholas Backstrom and this potentially being his last NHL game. I was really hoping for a true reunion there for the Washington Capitals and maybe a little bit of a nostalgia act between him and Alex Ovechkin. And I got to think that Alex Ovechkin is already missing him. He only has 2 goals in his first few games in this NHL season. It's very uncharacteristic of him. So I think that's going to be cause for concern. But this is a perfect segue at this point into Wow or Worrisome, where we're going to be talking about which teams have been wowing us and which teams do we think it's time to worry about. So, Tom, I'll let you take it away here. Wow or Worrisome, what teams are wowing you and what teams are worrying you?
Well, I don't want to say this, but Vegas Golden Knights are, picking up right where they left off last year. They didn't lose their first regulation game until last night. They are now 11-1-1, 7-0-1 at home, 4-1-0 on the road, 8-1-1 in their last 10. What more can you say about them? And I didn't want to believe it until they really blew the doors off Colorado on Saturday night and beat them 7-0. I was going to put Colorado in this too, but after getting the doors blown off them by Vegas, now I don't know. Now I don't know if I want to put them in there, even though they're respectable too at 7-3-0. The loss to Vegas was unfortunate, but 7-3-0, in their last 10 because they've only played 10 games, whereas Vegas has played 11, it looks like. 13, actually. So Vegas's last 10 is a little bit different. Hats off to the Dallas Stars as well, 7-1. A little more to be predicted by the Dallas Stars. They're not particularly wowing me because this is how I thought they were going to be, 7-1 in their last 10. So I kind of expected this for the Dallas Stars. But now on to the teams who are really wowing me. And we're going to do a rematch of the 2011 Stanley Cup Finals here. The Boston Bruins, yet again, 9-1-1. I figured this team would be around, like on the playoff bubble, struggling to start, maybe in third of the wild card. They're 8-1-1 in their last 10. They haven't lost a game on home ice yet. They're doing this all without their number one defenseman who's out for a hit to the head. They lost their top 2 centers last year. They lost a lot of their forward depth, yet they're still getting it done. And history has maybe shown us every time you write these Bruins off or every time they do something drastic, they still come back from it. And, we talked about their lack of prospects, but then look at this guy, Matthew Poitras, who they have. He's really tearing it up for them, really doing well for them. I'm very surprised at these Bruins, but the caveat with the Bruins is this. It's early in the season, and I saw this happen as a Ranger fan years ago, where it was the offseason where they dumped Yager and Shanahan and Avery to go with more of a team-first approach, and you brought in a guy like Marcus Naslund and the like. And I remember, too, the Rangers came flying out of the gate that year, and then as we got into the wintertime, they really hit a hard stop. So I am wondering if the same thing will happen to these Bruins. It remains to be seen. On to the last team that's wowing me, and it's one I talked about briefly in previous episodes, Vancouver Canucks. Could they finally be turning the corner now? 8-2-1 to start. Let's go here. 7-2-1 in the last 10. Won their last 3 in a row. And right now, the Pacific is weak. Vegas is doing what I thought that they were going to do. LA more or less is doing what I thought they were going to do. Thing is, on paper, when these players play how they're supposed to play, I think Vancouver's a better team than the LA Kings. I really do. I think Vancouver had so much untapped potential over the last few years, and I'm not going to rehash it. You heard me talk about it enough. But they're playing really well right now. And, has Vancouver finally snapped out of it? Maybe they have. Maybe it's just they finally snapped out of it, A. And B, I guess another thing to attribute to it as well is that Pacific Division is terrible. It's terrible right now. We already said it was going to be the weakest division, but I didn't think it would be this bad. I really didn't think it would be this bad. Now on to the teams that are worrisome. So the San Jose Sharks, we knew they were going to be bad. I didn't think they were going to be this bad. They gave up 10 goals in back-to-back games. I think there's some AHL teams who might be able to beat them right now. And where can you really go from here? It's not like they're loaded with stars either. And they were going to be bad, but I don't think, this is like 1974 Washington Capitals bad. That's how, I was watching them against Vancouver the other night after one of my hockey games. I think it was 6 or 7-0. I walked to go to the bathroom and do a couple things around the house. The next thing I knew, it was 9-0. Yeah. But the thing is that it was sort of to be expected, even though it wasn't expected to be this bad. I hate to sound like a broken record. Now I'm going to move on to 2 teams who we didn't expect to be this terrible. Number 1, case in point, Edmonton Oilers. Edmonton Oilers, terrible hockey. 2-7-1 to start. 2-7-1 in the last 10. They've only played 10. 2-7-1 in the last 10. Lost their last 2 in a row. You're starting to hear rumblings from Connor McDavid about how he's annoyed with the direction of the team. And now you really got to think, well, what are the Oilers going to do? Because I don't think you can trade McDavid without keeping half his salary. And if you do trade McDavid, and what Edmonton would ask back, you're just asking to go somewhere to put yourself in the same situation. Whereas any team can give up a huge chunk of change for him, but then you go there and you're stuck as the main guy, and you're stuck chopping off the depth, or chopping off your number 1 goalie, or chopping off a number 1 defenseman. Something's got to get figured out in Edmonton. And if they miss this year, heads are going to roll up there in the offseason.
Yeah, it should be mentioned with Edmonton that Connor McDavid is set to be an unrestricted free agent at the end of 2025, 2026.
Yeah, but at the same time, as great of a player as, and he's the best player in the world, no one is going to tear their team down to bring him in there so you can go right into the same situation. It doesn't make sense. To me, it doesn't, at least.
Doesn't make sense, but as we know with Wayne Gretzky, no player is considered untouchable.
But that was a different thing. There was no cap. The Oilers had no money. They knew they were going to lose them for nothing. And it was your typical MO of hockey players, because back then it was a little bit different. Back then, a lot of these guys back then were born in the 60s, grew up in the 70s, The league was rapidly expanding back then. And the thought was in the 60s and 70s and early 80s with these players were, okay, 5 or so years ago, I would have been riding buses around Western Canada or the Southern United States as a career minor leaguer. I'm an NHL player now. I'm just happy to be playing in the best league in the world and, have a steady job. I get to fly, have a decent house, have all that. What had changed then is the players were starting to get a little angry at the money they were making. And with no cap, no revenue sharing, the ownership in Edmonton knew they weren't going to be able to pay these guys much longer. That's why what happened. Excuse me.
Am I the sick one or you?
Huh?
I said, am I the sick one or you?
Just allergies, man. But I want to move on to another team that always had money. Maybe we're a little cheap about it. Toronto Maple Leafs. Austin Matthews is scoring a lot for them. It seems like he's scoring a hat trick every game. But they can't find a way to win too many of them. They're getting shellacked right now by the Tampa Bay Lightning. He scored a hat trick the other night against Buffalo for them to lose the game. They're not nearly as bad as Edmonton or San Jose, but nobody's as bad as San Jose. But 4-4-2 in their last 10 for a team that we all thought was going to be running away with this division. You have Boston, who everybody wrote off, Detroit, who everybody was a question mark, and they're just holding on to the last wild card spot right now, the Maple Leafs are. And this is another one. Whereas your core four right now is still there. They're still producing. But if this keeps up or they have a mediocre year, the rumblings start with them wanting to maybe trade a guy like William Nylander to bring in that number one defenseman, even though Morgan Rielly's look better, or to try to bring in a legit number one goalie. That's what's going to happen if they don't get it straight.
Controversial take.
Yet again, it's the same thing with these Leafs every year. Everybody thinks they're going to turn the corner, and every year they don't. And here they are. This division was gift wrap for them this year, and they're not following up.
Controversial take on that point. They should have already traded somebody like Willie Nylander if they were actually serious, because plugging and playing right now for them is just not working. I mean, look at the lack of response on the ice when Timothy Liljegren got ran the other night on Saturday. You know, the response was horrendous. Like, it was terrible. It wasn't even that it was horrendous. It was too little too late, and it took away from trying to get back into that game. Whereas I hate to use them as an example because it makes me sound more like a homer every single time I do, but I really like the Devils' response when Nico Hischier got hit high by Connor Clifton. Who's the first guy to the pile? Andre Palat. Andre Palat has nothing to prove. He's not a fighter. He's won 2 Stanley Cups. He's on his retirement contract practically at this point. I mean, the guy has really no horse in the race except honestly just play with heart. And that's exactly what he did. He's the first guy in on that pile going after Connor Clifton, and the rest of the guys on the ice hounded him as well. You know, the Devils, for being, lack of a better term, pretty soft in general most nights, they step up when situations like that happen and at least let it be known, hey, we're not going to take it. Toronto, with their plug and play guys like a Ryan Reeves, who they spent way too much in the offseason for, what was his response? You know, he's the guy that should be going out in response to Timothy Liljegren, and there was nothing. Absolutely nothing. I got to think that Toronto is at least getting a little bit worried, and honestly, a trade should have happened a year or 2 years. Honestly, 2 years ago. If you were going to trade Willie Nylander, it needed to be 2 years ago. You have no money. You have no cap space. You've needed defense desperately, and now you just lose another defenseman in Timothy Liljegren for an undetermined amount of time. Like, it's bad. Tom, do you want me to take it from here? Did you have any other thoughts with Toronto?
I'm just saying with Toronto, you know, you had a chance to maybe kick the tires on Drew Doughty out in LA. Well, that's not happening anymore now that LA is starting to make the playoffs again and play decent hockey. Now you don't have that out for Drew Doughty anymore. So where are you going to go find yourself? And they should have probably tried to kick the tires on Connor Hellebuck too. Tried to get him over there. Can't do that anymore either. So now they're shooting themselves in the foot. And I said it before, and I'll say it again. I really think they were trying to emulate the mid 2010s Pittsburgh Penguins, who it was just you know, plug and play these top offensive guys. You know, find okay guys to plug and play with them, have an okay defense, have an okay to mediocre goaltending, because that's how the Penguins did it, and they won 2 cups in a row. The Leafs, for whatever reason, never were able to emulate that. You had, obviously, teams like the Boston Bruins in the way, but then there were just other times where the Leafs shot themselves in their own foot.
I hate to say it even too, but like I look at like a move that Carolina made in the offseason that was innocuous and cheap. But I think even Tony DeAngelo would have been an upgrade on that defense, and they got him for relatively cheap.
Even Brent Burns last year might have been something to take a call on or try to do something with.
Yeah, like
even just give up a first for Brent Burns, you know, something like that.
Yeah, it's like you don't care about building your depth at this moment. It's cup or bust for Toronto at this point.
And it's not a knock on Morgan Rielly, but I just don't think he's ever going to become even that middle of the road number one guy. He's just okay. He's not even middle of the road like Letang was out in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, he's a little overrated in my mind. He's perfectly rated in the sense that you're fine if he's one of your first pairing defensemen, but he's a guy that you need to pair with another true bona fide top pairing defenseman, and he doesn't have that.
No,
he doesn't have that in Toronto. He has to be the guy, and I don't think he's the guy. I think he's a good supporting role guy on that first pairing, Like, I think any team that has a bona fide number one defenseman would be happy with him pairing with any of their top defensemen, but he's just not the number one guy.
And he's having an okay start. He's got 8 points in 11 games for a defenseman. That's great, but there's still more that needs to be done in Toronto. And if it's not that, then they got to go out and find themselves a goaltender. And what top goaltender out there is going to be available?
There's nothing right now. It's a barren wasteland for goaltenders. The only outside chance that Toronto has, and it's not even a real possibility, is John Gibson in Anaheim. And they don't have the cap space for John Gibson.
No, and that you got to pay attention to somebody in the later rounds of the draft. But I mean, how long are you going to wait for that guy to come? That's something that should have been addressed a couple of years ago.
Just a bit of a failure from the top down. But you know what? We talk about failures like this, but if Toronto actually somehow makes a run and they actually win a Stanley Cup in the next year or two, we'll eat our words for sure. But we got to actually see them make it past the second round at this point. And this is a team that's too talented not to make it past the second round. I'll start with my worrisome teams here. Tom, you mentioned Edmonton before, and I got to agree. If I'm an Edmonton fan, I'm definitely nervous right now, especially after hearing Connor McDavid's comments the past week. Connor McDavid didn't mince words. He said it's like being stabbed 1,000 times right now. It's not a good start. Connor McDavid has also been snake bitten at the start of this season as well, being injured as well. But even with him in the lineup, Edmonton really hasn't been able to make a difference on the ice. 2-7-1 is pathetic for a team that we thought was going to run away with the Pacific this year. It's a terrible start. They should be running away with this Pacific. They're letting Vegas run away with this Pacific, and it's not even a close race at this point. The rest of the Pacific Division is just horrid. What more can be said about San Jose? This might be one of the worst starts in it for an NHL team in recent memory. This is historically bad. I don't remember a 10-game start for any team like this. They got outscored over the weekend 20-3. That is horrendous. Prayers for Mackenzie Blackwood over there because he started the season pretty okay, making a couple really key saves, standing on his head, and it's just gone downhill since. Prayers for him, Capo Kakinen, and every mother and grandmother out in San Jose right now because it is not an easy start. Your leading point getter right now also only has like 5 points to start the season. Honorable mention there to Fabian Zetterlund, former New Jersey Devil. Sorry you have to suffer with all of that. I also got to think that Washington fans might be a little bit worried when they realize that Alex Ovechkin only has 2 goals to start this year. As I mentioned before, it's an uncharacteristic start for the Phenom. And I got to think that, it's at least weighing in the minds of some people right now. Is this start just a slow start and, he's just going to get going soon? Or is Alex Ovechkin's age finally catching up to him? And I really hope it's not that, because if his age is catching up to him this quickly, I don't know if Alex Ovechkin has the chance to break Gretzky's record, which I thought was a shoo-in years ago. We'll see. We'll see going from here. I will be interested to see if he gets it going here, and we'll certainly cover that as we go on. Dallas, I mean, they're off to a great start, but we knew they were going to be off to a great start. Boston, you know what? I'm going to say it. They're off to a great start, but I'm still going to, err on the side of caution because we all saw what happened in the playoffs. There, I said it. We talked about Vegas quite a bit last week as well, and I'm not surprised with how they're starting. They have the strongest lineup in all the Pacific Division, and I know I undersold it, and I certainly ate it completely in the comments section in the Pacific preview. Much deserved on my part, but man, Vegas is off to a fantastic start. And honestly, I knew that they were going to get off to a start like this. There is no cup hangover for them right now, and it's great to see. The Vancouver Canucks, holy moly. Like, they are the second best team in that division, and I did not think that was going to happen this early in the season. They're really clicking on all cylinders right now, and they're a fun team to watch as well. If you read the comment sections of social media for Devils and Rangers fan groups right now, you would think that the world is on fire, everything is terrible, and MSG and Prudential Center are literally burning to the ground right now. However, I don't think it's time to panic for either teams yet because it's still so early on. And we've seen early injuries hurt a team early on, but things work out just fine. Case in point, the Florida Panthers last year got healthy at just the right point, and it led them to a Stanley Cup final. So I'm not worried about the Devils. I'm not worried about the Rangers, especially because the Rangers and Devils, respectively, right now are number 1 and 2 in the Metropolitan Division. They're running roughshod on the division at the moment, and they're showing no signs of stopping either. So going to be exciting matchups to see for the Rangers and Devils this week as we keep covering and keep moving forward. But it's time to move away from Wow or Worrisome. We'll come back to that next week. Let's start wrapping and winding this episode down. It's time to talk high performance. Let's talk about our players of the week.
Your I-80 Sports High Performance Players of the Week.
Tom, who do you want to highlight with your players of the week?
Well, a bit of a homer alert here, but it's to be warranted. Artemi Panarin, 10 points in his last 5. Right now, the Rangers' best forward. And right now, I think that outside of Igor being hurt long-term, which he's not, which we have found out, that if Panarin were to get hurt long-term, it would be a bigger loss than Adam Fox. I really do. Panarin, everyone wants to trash him for his playoffs, but Dave Maloney, Rangers radio analyst, says it best. He goes, without those 90-point years from Panarin, the team doesn't even get to the playoffs. It's something people tend to forget. That you can talk all you want about the Lundqvist years and Dubinsky and Callahan and the like. Those guys were never close to 90-point players. They weren't. Those years just happened to get lucky with a couple 50-point guys on the top 6. You need a guy like Panarin on your team if you want to go anywhere, and I really like what he's doing. And now it's going to be the Vancouver Canucks show after this. And by the way, Panarin tied for second in scoring in the entire league. Elias Pettersson, 20 points. Right now with Jack Hughes injured, he's leading the league in scoring. Quinn Hughes, 16 points. Probably my favorite Hughes because of the team that he plays for because I don't have to worry about him anymore. Probably the favorite for the Norris Trophy right now, 16 points. JT Miller, also 16 points. Brock Besser, also in the top 20 in scoring. I mean, for the Canucks, that's great. You have 4 players in the top 20 in scoring. I know it's only November. Canucks, hopefully they keep it up, and it's good for their fans. It's good that the team is playing well again. It really is. After so many years of misfires and false starts, it's good to see the Canucks doing well again. I will say that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Vancouver Canucks are certainly propped up at the moment by Elias Pettersson's 20 points and Quinn Hughes' 16 points, and certainly a Norris favorite at the moment. Fun fact at the moment, at time of recording, because Jack Hughes is still technically tied for the league lead in points right now. Quinn Hughes is the current leader for points among all defensemen with 16 points. Jack Hughes is tied for the NHL lead in points with 20 points. And Luke Hughes is currently leading all rookies right now in points as well. So the Hughes brothers are just having a fantastic start to the NHL season. We could be seeing an all Hughes trophy ceremony at the end of the season if things keep going at the pace they're going. Could be a lot of fun to watch at the NHL awards ceremony this year.
Bro.
I'll be a homer as well. Tom, you were a homer with Artemi Panarin, which he's one of my players of the week as well. 11 points in his last 6 games, had a 9-point point streak to start the season, 9-game point streak to start the season 2. And Jesper Bratt, he's currently second in the league in points with 18 points to start this season. He, I believe, even had 14 of his points in his last 5 or 6 games. And he's just off to a fantastic start. Jesper Bratt has truly earned that offseason contract and more, and he's really just hit the ground running this season, and is part of the reason why the Devils are 7-3 to start this NHL season. But as we wind down our episode here, we've got our question of the day. Got a simple question of the day this week because, well, I'm trying to think of some good random questions, and maybe you can hit us up down below in the comments section with ideas for questions of the week moving forward. We'd love some fan participation. But Who has the best general manager in the league right now? And this question kind of stems from the fact that I feel like we've been talking about some bad general managers over the past few weeks. Pierre Dorian was one of the people that we were talking about at the beginning of this episode. So let's highlight some of the best. Tom, who in your mind is one of, if not the best general manager in the league right now?
Well, my initial choice, I had forgotten, is not a general manager anymore, and that was going to be Joe Sakic. Joe Sakic, he rebuilt the Colorado Avalanche from bottom dwellers to Stanley Cup champions. You know, he's been able to draft good talent, bring talent along so they become stars. And while he's been very stingy with trades, he's made the right trades and he's brought the right players in when he's had to spend the money. But herein lies the problem. Joe Sakic is not the general manager of the Colorado Avalanche anymore. He's the president of hockey operations for the Colorado Avalanche. So here's a guy, so he's kind of out of the running right now. So I'm going to go with somebody else here. Somebody who I have been very, very positive about. Somebody who I want to say admired, but somebody who's done a very good job in bringing a team that was left for dead back to being a contender and kind of, I wouldn't say shocking the hockey world this year, but they're playing very good after I thought that they wouldn't be that good. And that is Don Sweeney of the Boston Bruins. Sweeney was brought in 2015 to be the general manager of the Bruins after Peter Chiarelli was fired. At the time, the Bruins went from Stanley Cup champions to Stanley Cup contenders to out of the playoffs in the matter of 3 years. Sweeney was able to rebuild the depth, bring along some good young players, and get the team back to respectability. The team got back to the finals in 2019. It was a little controversial that Game 5 against St. Louis would happen. If that didn't happen, they might have won a cup that year. They had the best season you could ever have last year and set the win record. And now this year, all of us, including us two, had written them off, and here they are, one of the best teams in the league. So I got to go, in my mind here, Don Sweeney. I mean, it's always been the case in Boston that they've always been no stranger to tearing the team apart before it needed to be done, and then being competitive right later on. But this is right over again. Looks like they haven't even skipped a beat this year, the Bruins, and I credit that to Don Sweeney. I really do. He's done a great job up there in Boston, and I think he'll continue to do a great job. The only thing Don Sweeney's missing is that coveted Stanley Cup, which he maybe should have won one or two of by now.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to be a homer with my pick here, but a lot of people have been talking on multiple social medias and YouTube as well. Just how astonishing the New Jersey Devils are this year and their potent firepower. And that's absolutely attributed to current general manager Tom Fitzgerald, who is also aptly nicknamed Fitzmagic for the New Jersey Devils. And he has had a major role in the Devils' recent success because he took this team from Ray Shero, and he was assistant general manager under Ray Shero. He was making a lot of these moves under Ray Shero as well when he was general manager. And he has taken a team in the New Jersey Devils that in 2016, 2017, they were one of the worst teams that I had ever seen on the ice as a New Jersey Devils fan. Taking a bottom dweller like that to where they are now, and just I'll give the greatest hits of the different moves that Fitzgerald has made over the past number of years. Drafting Jack Hughes, #1 overall, not buying into the hype that, he's never played with adults, they should take Capo Caco instead. Look at Jack Hughes now. He has been fantastic. And that's no knock on Capo Caco. He's a fantastic player in his own right, but he's not Jack Hughes. They're two totally different players. Jack Hughes is the player that the New Jersey Devils needed at that time. And then signing him to his 8-year, $8 million per year contract, that has aged wonderfully. I think that is the best contract in the NHL right now. And it might be a close second to Leon Draisaitl's contract as well, because that's also a pretty friendly contract for his talent level. Turning Taylor Hall into mainstays on the roster like Jonas Siegenthaler, Kevin Ball, and Dawson Mercer as well. Another magical move on his part, luring Dougie Hamilton to New Jersey Devils long-term, signing Nico Hischier to his friendly 7x7 contract, locking up Timo Meier and Jesper Bratt. I mean, the list goes on and on and on of the different moves that Tom Fitzgerald has made to make the Devils successful for the next several years. Never minding all the drafting that he's done and the successful drafting that the Devils have done over the past number of years as well. That's why I think Tom Fitzgerald is the best general manager in the league. But as usual, guys, with all of our thoughts from today, what do you guys think? Do you agree? Do you disagree with our takes? You got to let us know down below. Hit up the comment section. Let us know. And while you're there, make sure that you like, comment, subscribe for all of the things that we've got coming up. We're going to hit you with another recap next week. But just in case that you forgot, youtube.com/i80sports. Hit the bell notifications so that way you know when our videos go live. And so that way you know when videos are getting ready to drop. We don't just have NHL content. We've got MLB, NFL, MLS. We've got plenty of content, NBA as well. Plenty of content at your disposal. Please make sure that you give them some love as well. And if you're still on X, make sure you follow us down below at I80_sports NHL. And if you follow us already, thank you guys so much because we greatly value all of your support. But it's time to stop hearing us talking. It's time to keep watching hockey. But until then, I'm Brian. He's Tom. I finally got the direction right. This has been our Week 3 recap of NHL on I80 Sports.